Hey, what's up, everyone? We're officially live. Swinging Bull here with PB Alerts. We got earnings, AMD, SMCI, semiconductor companies, AI companies. It's going to be good earnings reactions we're going to see here. Of course, they're AI hardware sectors and semiconductor companies, as I say. Let's just take a quick peek here. AMD is supposed to report at 4:15 p.m. Eastern. So got about 15 minutes on that one. And their forecast. Oh, you lost my audio on Discord? All right, let me try and just reconnect real quick. Sorry about that. All right, let's go back here. All right, hopefully audio is working now. So anyways, AMD's reporting earnings at 4:15. Their forecast EPS 0.49. Revenue forecast 7.4 billion. And so we'll see what they come in at. They're trading well above their anchored VWAP. Their anchored VWAP's around $140 a share. All right, so SMCI, their forecast EPS is 0.44, and their forecast revenue is 5.99 billion. And they report at 4:05 p.m. Eastern. So we'll get SMCI first. Their anchor VWAP's just below $45 a share. We're probably around 45, yeah. So they're trading just below 60 right now. Let me try and fix this Discord one more time. Okay. All right, let me know if you can hear me now. That's all I can really do to mess with it. Okay, they can hear me now. Jeez, good old Discord. Gotta love it. Almost 700 people tuning in on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch. I should say X, right? And Kick. Blue Brains here. What's up, brother? Good to see you. So let's go back to the candlesticks real quick. So SMCI, 4:05 p.m. About 3 more minutes. Shout out to Blue Brains' son, Darcy. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Here, I'll put that little shout out to you on the bottom of my screen there, Blue Brain. Almost 1,000 people. We got people just piling into the stream. But shout out to my buddy Blue Brain. He's been coming in on here with these streams with me for a while now. We're just kind of watching the reactions, seeing what the stock price reactions are to the earnings data, EPS revenue, any guidance I can find, commentary from the CEO. And then at the end of the stream, I like going over some of my open positions with everyone, just kind of take a little peek under the hood, if you will, right? But good to see you, Blue Brain. So we got about 2 more minutes, and we should get SMCI's reaction. So they closed the regular session at, fine art experts from X. Greets from Brussels. Let me give you a little shout out there. Thanks for joining the stream. Almost 1,300 people. People are just piling in. They want to see these 2 semiconductor companies, AI hardware companies. Let's see what the reactions are going to be. And of course, the other semiconductor companies will probably move with these stocks when we get their reactions. Got 1 more minute. 1 more minute before we get SMCI, EPS revenue, guidance, any commentary from the CEO or CFO. I'll share that with everybody. And let me get my other screen pulled up. So when the data comes in, boom, I'll share it with everyone. No probs. Okay. There we go. Okay, it's the final countdown. 20 more seconds. Wearing my FSU hat today. I'm from Florida, in case anyone was wondering. My name's Benjamin. Most people call me Ben. Discord name is the Swinging Bull. All right. Any moment now, I'm going to go to 1 minute chart. SMCI. It's about to make a move. So far, it's came down a little bit, just like a couple dollars a share, but let's give it a minute to settle because sometimes it'll whipsaw a little bit. And we'll find out if this is in fact going to be the right move or the real move. Sometimes there's a little wick action with the candles and it goes the other way, but find our experts on X. OG Palantir stockholder. Nice. You must have a great average. And now you're also in AMD. If you got a really sweet average on PLTR, maybe you could sell some 10 delta or 20 delta covered calls to bring in some income. You could write one contract for every 100 shares you own. Just something to think about. It could bring in some income while you're waiting for shares to appreciate, that kind of thing. Doesn't really take, I mean, you could, of course, implement technical analysis when you go to deploy the covered calls, but you don't necessarily have to. You could just use the delta as a guide. But, you know, good time to sell them maybe when the stock's getting close to resistance. Write a couple covered calls. When it rejects off resistance, it should be quick, easy money for you. And then you could use that credit you collect on those covered calls to help reduce your cost base, your overall cost basis. You know, maybe keep track of the premium you're collecting on the covered calls on a Excel spreadsheet on the side, and you can slowly chip away at your cost basis and reduce it that way while bringing in income, you know, weekly or monthly, however you want to set it up. But that's the kind of stuff I teach over here in the Discord. How to kind of, I write contracts and target weekly and monthly income. That's what I do in a nutshell. So if you've ever been curious about selling to open options, writing contracts, and you want to come see me. But yeah, it's looking like we got a negative reaction on SMCI. We've got about another 8 minutes on AMD. Let's see if AMD does something different. Let me, since SMCI data is out, let's take a quick peek real quick. Because we already went over their forecasts and expectations when the stream started. So, all right, looks like a double miss on SMCI. So that's not really exciting investors at the moment. I'm going to go to Webull just for a sec here. Let me go to chart view. Okay. I'll put AMD on the left, SMCI on the right. Oops, typed in the wrong symbol. You can tell AMD kind of took a little bit of a hit with SMCI's negative reaction, but just hang tight because AMD hasn't reported yet. They're basically just trading in sympathy with SMCI's data that was just released. So a little bit of selling on AMD, but the results for AMD aren't out yet. So this very well, maybe they have a lot better results than SMCI. But we got about 6 or 7 more minutes before AMD. So let me just pull this graphic over here from the earnings correspondent on X. And we got, again, the forecast for SMCI's EPS was 0.44. They just reported 0.41, so they missed that by 7%. We talked about the expected revenue for SMCI. It's 5.9 billion. They reported 5.75 billion, so missed that by 3%. So double miss on those two line items. EPS, the year-over-year number was down 35%. That's not too good. Revenue up 8% though. Year-over-year numbers. Quarter-over-quarter numbers look good. More of a shorter term view, if you will. So that's something to note there. Of course, I would think year-over-year numbers probably hold a bit more weight than the quarter-over-quarter, but nonetheless, double-digit growth on the quarter-over-quarter. EPS was up 32%. Revenue was up 25%. So just going to kind of keep our eye on SMCI to see if it starts forming a bottom, maybe starts printing some higher lows. let's kind of see what kind of retrace levels we're working with right now. I'll just go to the top of this red candle, basically draw it down to the after hours low. So it's kind of what we're looking at here. Got some good levels that we can keep our eye on. Of course, that 25% retrace from the low, that's important to kind of break back above that. So the price is kind of dealing with that level right now, and puts the price right at 51.50. So, resistance number one, at least I know it's a 1 minute chart, so it is what it is, but the data was just released. Resistance number one, or R1 as I would call it, it's 51.50. It's got to get back above there for my confidence to start building that, okay, we might have a chance of reversing here. So that's my R1. R2, you could probably use the 50% retrace or the golden ratio right here, but I'm going to say 53.50 for R2. So pretty easy levels to keep in mind. And let's see if it can reclaim some of those levels. So 51.50 would be first, and then I'd be looking for 53.50, little $2 kind of range there up to the next resistance. And if those two levels can break, I feel pretty good that, okay, the bottom's in. Might even start printing some higher lows, and that would be a good thing for the SMCI bulls. But it's really not down a lot. I mean, it's down 10%. Okay, so it's down $6 a share. It's $57 stock coming into the earnings. So yeah, I mean it's down a little bit. I was talking about covered calls earlier, but that's another way to maybe hedge the downside a little bit. It's not going to hedge the full downside, but selling covered calls and collecting that premium will hedge the downside a little bit. So a situation like that, if it sells off a little bit after earnings and it's still kind of hanging out down here tomorrow, then you'll have some pretty good profit on those covered calls to help kind of battle any drawdown you might be seeing on your shares. Another thing you can do, and this strategy is what I would use to fully protect a position. So this would be a position you're green on. Okay, you're green. Maybe it's something you've been holding for a while, and you got earnings coming up, and you're like, shit, what do I do? How do I protect this? Like fully protect it, with no mysteries or anything behind it. And that's what we call a collar trade. And what you would do, you take your position and you say you've got some real nice profit on it, and you want to somehow lock in the profit or not lose any of that profit if there's a negative reaction to the earnings. And the way to do that is to do a collar trade. And I won't get into it in too much detail, but just to kind of summarize it, you would sell covered calls, and then the premium that you collect from those covered calls, you use that premium to buy naked put option and cap your downside through intrinsic value based on the strike price you pick. So that's definitely a good trade to do. It's more for conservative traders and traders that don't want to lose any gain that they might have on their position, because what will happen is if there is a negative reaction, yes, you'll take a hit on the stock price, but your naked put, protective put is what I call it, would be capped at the strike price you choose. So you wouldn't participate in any of the downside if the underlying stock goes below your strike price of your protected put, and the value that you would lose on your shares would kind of be compensated for from the increased value of your protected put. The gain you would have on those would cover any potential loss that you would have on your shares. And then you could just choose to maybe liquidate your position, but that's a way to lock in your gains if you already have gains on the table. So that's probably the extent of what I'm going to explain on this stream. But again, these are some of the types of trading strategies that I do in the Discord that I'm literally showing everyone how to do all this stuff. Most of my trades are multi-leg options. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 components with my trades. Get to 4 legs, then we're talking about condors now, and I do short condors and long condors. But my bread and butter has been the wheel strategy, which is basically selling cash secured puts to get into stock and selling covered calls to get out of it with profit, and just kind of rinse and repeating as the wheel rotates. And that's kind of what I do there. Okay, so AMD, back to the sticks here. SMCI trying to bottom out, but here we go. So far, positive reaction on AMD. I don't want to speak too soon because we know how these things work. Sometimes that initial reaction isn't the real one, and it kind of looks like that we're getting a little bit of that with AMD right now. It wicked up to 179, a little above that. Then it came back down to where it closed at the regular session. And then it wicked down to 170. There's like a $9 range between these wicks here. And it's still dancing around right now. So let's give it a minute for it to settle. And let me also get the AMD, or I'm sorry, the SMCI data. I want to post that on the bottom of my screen for everybody. Fine art experts on X. It looks like AMD's out. It's a little bit of indecision going on right now. It wicked up to 179, then came all the way back down to 170 in a $9 kind of frantic range there with these wicks. And now it's just kind of dancing around. I mean, it is green. It's turning green. It was trading just above where it closed the regular session, but now it's dancing around in the green between 1% and 2%. Looks like there's just, it's still kind of volatile with the data just coming out and shares exchanging hands. So let's give it a few more minutes to make sure this is going to be a positive reaction. Back to SMCI just for a second. It's still trying to find the bottom. Could be around the 49.50 area. That's where it bottomed out after these two red candles. It's been fighting with the 25% retrace level for a few of these candle prints. You can see right here, just kind of bouncing around, running underneath it. So again, R1 on SMC1 would be 51.50. R2, I'll put that at 53.50 and see if it can retrace some of those levels. So let me, before I get sidetracked, it's almost 4:20 now. Let me get the data. Oh, my buddy Shai Balor on X posted a nice recap of SMCI earnings. So their sales came in at 5.8 billion. The estimate was 5.9, so they missed there. And we talked about this earlier. It was a double miss, and the EPS came in at 0.41. The estimate for that was 0.44. Gross margins came in at 10%. The estimate was 10%. A little bit of guidance info. Thank you, Shai Balor. Go follow him too if you haven't already. Great investor, and I've learned a lot from him. But Q1 outlook, sales came in 6.5 billion versus the estimate of 6.6 billion. So the Q1 outlook, and of course that's for 2026. That was reduced a little bit, just by a hair. EPS for Q1 outlook, basically guidance, right? They announced 0.46, and the estimate for that was 0.56. So unfortunately, SMCI, I guess the only thing going for their earnings, but overall it just wasn't enough to push investors for this thing to catch a bid, is they did increase fiscal year 2026 guidance. They reported 33 billion is what they're projecting for 2026. The estimate for that was only 29.8 to be exact. So kind of it's overall negative, their earnings, okay? But there is a little silver lining because they increased the guidance for next year. So again, quick recap on SMCI. And matter of fact, let me just post the sales, EPS, and gross margins. I should be able to fit that on one post here. Let me do this. Give me 1 second. And there we go. Okay, so I got the data on the bottom of my screen for EPS and sales. So again, just to summarize, we're going to go over to AMD here in a second, but I just want to kind of finish off SMCI. I'll also get the link for everyone to be able to join the earnings web call with the upper management, CEO, CFO, whoever that got there, hosting that. So again, just a quick recap on SMCI. They missed revenue. They missed EPS. Okay. as far as the quarter they were reporting for. They decreased Q1 guidance for sales and EPS. However, they did increase the fiscal year 2026 guidance. So, but that fiscal year 2026 guidance increase just wasn't enough to kind of balance out them missing EPS and missing sales and lowering the quarter outlook or guidance. So SMCI testing after hours low right now. Let's see if it tries to double bottom, but this might turn into one of those bearish lowercase h patterns that we trade a lot. You know, the bottom falls out here, usually another leg down, but or it could double bounce here, double bottom bouncer, maybe. We'll see. There was a little bit of frenzy of a buying when it came down to 49 point in the 49.50s. There was some buying that came in, but the sellers are just, you know, too overbearing right now. And we do got a sell side imbalance on the level 2 order book. So just something to keep your eye on. And there we go. It just broke for a new after hours low. So just a little recap on SMCI. Let me get the link for their earnings web call. We'll get the time for everyone on that. And I'll give everyone a chance to screenshot the link, and it'll take you right to the earnings web call. And then we're going to jump into AMD because I know a lot of people are here for that one. So just give me one sec here to get that link for the earnings web call. All right, let me just pull this over. We already got the reaction on SMCI. It just made a new after hours low. So we're just kind of waiting for the bottom to come in. And then boom, right as I'm streaming, there's that bearish H pattern that we like to scalp. I scalp those a lot in the Discord, usually just quick in and out once we get that break of that level. And so there we go with that one. So SMCI, this is going to be the link that'll get you to the earnings web call. I'll post that on my screen right now and give everyone a chance to screenshot that. So just screenshot that. The link isn't too crazy to type out. And that'll take you right to the earnings web call. So right on their home page, on their investor relation, you can see right here in the lower right of my screen, August 5th, which is today. And it's going to be at 5 p.m. Eastern. Okay. It's about, you know, a little over 30 more minutes for that earnings web call to go down. And you can see this little button here, that's this red button that says webcast. So go to that link at 5 p.m. Eastern, click that webcast, and you'll be able to see SMCI's earnings web call with the higher ups, okay, with the upper management and all that. All right, let's go to AMD. Hold on, my computer just glitched out on me there for a second. Okay, so SMCI, still trying to find the bottom. Just keep your eye on it. All right, give me 1 second here. I think my screen was freezing a little bit, but that's okay. Okay. Give me 1 second. Okay, just had to wait for that to come back. AMD, let's take a look. AMD's got some selling coming in. That first candle was pretty volatile. Big wick on the bottom and on the top. It ended up, there was some buying that came in. They broke 179 a little bit, but now the selling's coming in. So, you know, if you're AMD bull, it's you know, don't freak out. We might get a little pullback here. It's looking like it's, you know, kind of following SMCI at the end of the day here. So we're just going to have to wait. You know, AMD is a solid company, okay? Their PE ratio, nice and positive. A bit on the high side, but the PEs on semiconductor companies are usually quite high to begin with. And the EPS, nice and positive, 1.6 billion float. Look at some of the financials. You know, we all know AMD's a profitable company. They've been profitable for the past 5 quarters, and they've been profitable for 5 years in a row. You know, it's a good company. You're going to be okay. And like I said, if you end up being a little red on it, going into tomorrow. I know hindsight is everything, but moving forward, think about maybe hedging the downside. You could, if you have enough shares, you can easily write a covered call contract, use that premium to buy a naked put, and then you're fully protected. That's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Or if you just want to protect some of the downside, just sell the covered call, and you'll collect some premium there. That'll help reduce your cost basis a little bit, and that could be a little mini hedge, just doing it that way if you want. Or you could do a put debit spread. That way you could participate with the strikes that are at the money. Even if you go 10 days out, they're kind of expensive. $700 to $800, for at the money strikes here. So, if you want to still participate with, because, of course, if they're at the money or even in the money, the Greeks are going to be a lot better. You're going to get a much better delta. The theta is not going to be as harmful to you. And, so what you could do to reduce the cost, because you could say, oh yeah, well, I'll just buy a put option. Well, that costs $700. So how do I get around, how do I participate if there is a downside move, but I don't want to spend $700? Well, what you could do is you could probably just set up a $2.50 wide put debit spread. And how that would shake out would be you would buy to open the 172.50 strike. So that would be a debit. I'll just go off of the last price here. So, well, actually, I'll go off the mid price because that'd be more accurate to the current value. So we'll say 720 would be a debit. Yeah, that would cost you a debit, but on the very same trade ticket, you're gonna sell to open the 170 and form a $2.50 wide spread. Okay, so you take your 720 debit, and it looks like the mid price on this 170 strike is 605. So 720 minus the 605 will be a credit, which means you now can participate in these strikes that are closer to the money, and it's only going to cost you $115. That's a good thing. Okay, so you've just reduced the money needed for your downside hedge. Now, these SPY put debit spreads aren't going to fully protect your downside, but you'd make a lot more money than you would make on a covered call. So if it's a $2.50 wide spread, we know that's worth $250, right? And if the spread's worth $250 and I pay $115 to enter that spread, well, that means my max gain is $135. All right. And since it's only costing you $115 instead of $700, maybe you could do a few of these, right? Maybe buy 3 of them or something, and that's still going to reduce your cost by half. But what this max gain means is you can make $135 profit on the trade, plus you get your $115 back. You got to remember that. Someone was asking me the other day, like, well, if I pay $115 for a debit spread and my max profit, right, quote unquote max profit, is only $135, they're thinking that they just get back $135 and they're only making $20 on the trade. That's not how it works. The $2.50 wide spread is worth $250. All right, so that's what you get back, which would be the $115 you paid for it plus the $135 on top for your profit. So if you're making $135 profit and you get your $115 initial investment back, that's 117% return on capital for this put debit spread. So this is a way to participate with the strikes that are closer or even at the money, even in the money. It's a way to participate in those and not need, you only need half your buying power, even less if you just did one spread, right? But and so you could still participate in the strikes that are at the money or in the money and still be able to pull a triple digit return on your money. Because that, for me to do a SPY, to use a put debit spread as a hedge, I'd like to at least get a triple digit return, right? I mean, that's why I don't really use credit spreads, like out of the money credit spreads for hedges, because the risk rewards kind of flip-flopped on those. But anytime it's a debit spread, I definitely want to try and get triple-digit return on it. And that's how you do it. Okay. My favorite though is fully protecting my downside, which would be selling a covered call and then using that premium to buy a protective put, and that would cap my downside at that strike price, like fully cap it down to zero. If the stock went to zero, I'd get paid a ton of money on that protective put, which then would offset any red that you see on your shares, and then you cash in your protective put, and then you can liquidate your shares after that and just walk away. That's a good way of locking in profit if you already have profit on the table, but it's also a good way to hedge the downside. All right, so hopefully everyone found that interesting, but unfortunately AMD is kind of suffering from the same price action that SMCI is going through. Even though AMD did have a positive reaction at first, but ultimately it's just kind of fallen off here. So it is down 5% in after hours. Okay, AMD is. It's a little under $10 a share, and SMCI is actually down 15%. So as far as percentages of being red, SMCI is kind of taking the brunt of the hit here, being down 15%. AMD's only down 5%. That should also kind of paint a little picture for you on, AMD might have better fundamentals than SMCI. I mean, there's a reason why AMD is trading in the 160s and 170s, and SMCI is down here in the 40s and the 50s. So, and just looking at the comparing the difference in the reactions, AMD does seem to be holding up a bit better than SMCI. So for you AMD bulls, that is something to keep in mind. I know it sucks looking at this thing selling off a little bit here, but at least it's not selling off as much as SMCI is, which means AMD's data was probably a little better. All right, so I hope everyone had a time to screenshot that link on the bottom of my screen. That will take you to SMCI's earnings web call at 5 p.m. Eastern. About 30 more minutes for that. Okay. Let me post the EPS and revenue for SMCI back on the bottom of my screen while I gather the AMD data for everybody. And SMCI making another attempt to bottom out. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my fib here, because since it made a new after hours low, I kind of got to change my levels and drop this down here. Because the idea of putting the Fibonacci on is once you think a bottom's in, that's a good time to go ahead and draw it on to see if it starts retracing some of these levels to the upside. If it keeps making new after hours low, then we just got to kind of keep moving the bottom of the fib down. I mean, that's just the only way to do it. And then once a bottom does come in, these levels should line up pretty well with the price action. You math people out there know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to the fib levels and ratios and stuff like that. All right, back to AMD, because obviously their data's out and I haven't gone over that yet. So give me one sec here. Now we'll pull that up. No problem. Again, Shai Balor coming in clutch with the data, all nicely laid out and nice and clean looking on the screen. So AMD earnings, their sales came in at 7.7 billion. The estimate was 7.4 billion. They beat on sales. Maybe that's had something to do with their initial positive reaction, because they did come up to 179 and some change up here initially. Maybe that was just at first sight of seeing them that they beat the sales forecast. EPS came in flat. Forecast was 48 cents. It came in at 48 cents. Couple line items that are important on the earnings. Data center sales. They brought in 3.2 billion on that. That's up 14% year over year, by the way. So double-digit growth on the data center sales. I know that's a big how they make money, right? The data center sales. And gross margin came in at 43%. The forecast for that was 54%. They did give a Q3 outlook, so we got a little bit of guidance here. And it's going to be regarding Q3, so the remainder of the third quarter. They reported They're expecting 8.7 billion in sales. The estimate on that was 8.3 billion. So they did increase guidance for the remainder of Q3. All right. IONQ, they report tomorrow, I believe. So I'm looking forward to streaming that earnings. IONQ reports tomorrow. I can get an exact time and everything for everyone, assuming Earnings Whispers doesn't have any typos in it. I've seen sometimes their times aren't all correct all the time, but let's pull up IONQ because this is a little preview for tomorrow. IONQ is supposed to report tomorrow at 4:15 p.m. Eastern, so I will be streaming that. Forecast EPS 0.13 and negative. Their expected revenue of 17 million. They're trading right at their anchored VWAP. Anchored VWAP's just above $40, so they're literally trading right there. So it's going to be interesting to see what their reaction is going to be tomorrow. Let me go back to the sticks real quick. AMD's still selling off. They just came down to a little above 164. Yeah, 164.36. 1 minute chart. It looks like they're trying to bottom. I mean, that's the same thing SMCI did and ended up making a new after hours low, and I had to move my fib level down. SMCI about ready to test the current after hours low, which is 47.55. All right, the previous after hours low was 49.55, so it made a $2 move down to form a new after hours low. So trying to find out if this thing's going to bottom out or not. Again, it's going to be pretty obvious when it does. It's going to start making higher lows. Some of these fib levels are going to get retraced, and then you should be good to go. I personally like when it breaches the golden ratio on the way back up. So gets 61.8% retrace. It's kind of a key level. That's around the mid 53s. If that level can get breached, I'm thinking it's probably going to fully retrace. But so we got some levels to take out before then. So this is, they're not out of the woods yet, by far. We got some pretty solid levels that needs to come back up and reclaim. And sitting here in after hours down a little over 16%, which is a little over $9 a share. AMD trying to bottom out here at 164 and some change. Draw a fib on this. And since that initial positive reaction wasn't the real move, I'm not going to use that to measure my fib. I'll probably go like right around where it closed at. I'll just start it at the top of this red candle here. And we'll go down here because that first initial reaction, that wasn't the real move. So I'm not going to use that in my measurements here. So I'll draw it like this. And same thing with AMD. It's kind of battling just above this 25% retrace. That's the key first level that needs to be taken out is that 25%. Because if that 25% doesn't get taken out, well, guess what that's going to end up being? It's going to end up being a dead cat bounce, and it's going to go back and make a new after hours low. That's what SMCI did. Remember when I had the fib and I drew it down to this first low it made? And it was battling with that 25%. It just couldn't reclaim it. Ended up being dead cat bounce and formed a new after hours low. So you don't want to get caught trying to go long until the dead cat bounce is it confirmed it's going to be a dead cat or not? And the easy way to tell, has it reclaimed at least the 25%? Maybe that could cut out some of your frustration moving forward. If you're trying to dip buy something, at least make sure it's not a dead cat bounce. It's okay to sacrifice 25% of the reversal to make sure it doesn't do that, right? It's okay to do that. You don't have to get the entire move. Better yet, you should sacrifice a little bit of the move to get some sort of form of confirmation that I'm on the right side of the trade now. The bottom is in. I personally, I would like not only for it to retrace the 25% to eliminate the fact that it could be a dead cat bounce. I also like a secondary measure, wait for some higher lows to print. It's okay. You just be a little patient. As soon as some higher lows start going in, well, then yeah, my confidence is a bit higher that that the bottom's in and this is going to reverse. So just some simple things that you can look for. All right, so let me go back to AMD and get that data posted. Let's see if I can fit all this on one post. Then I'll show everyone how to get to the earnings web call for AMD. That one's probably around 5 p.m. Eastern as well, but I'll definitely double check. So here's AMD earnings. I just put it on the bottom of my screen, so everyone should be able to see that. AMD says U.S. export controls led to 800 million. Excuse me, got the hiccups. Take a sip of water. Okay, they said AMD says U.S. export controls led to 800 million in inventory charges. Jeez. Gross margin would have been 54% excluding that impact. So that's why their margin didn't come in with the forecast. Their margin came in 11 points lower than what the estimate was. So they're saying that's due to the U.S. export controls, which led to 800 million in inventory charges. That's what they're blaming it on. And I guess that'll definitely affect your margins. It's almost $1 billion in charges. So that's kind of what they're pointing out there with that line item. Let me go get the earnings web call link for AMD, and then I just want to show everyone some open positions I got right now. My Fidelity, one of my accounts here. And again, just to summarize, SMCI still trying to find a bottom. It might be onto something now because it looks like it's trying to double bottom on that recent low of the 47.55 it just tapped. There was some buying that came in. It did come back down to retest that level, and we're getting some more buying candles. So maybe this 47 point, it's the mid 47s. I never really go to the penny because it never lines up to the penny. So I like to kind of look at things from a bird's eye view. I'm just going to say mid 47s. It looks like it could be some pretty good demand right there because it's trying to double bottom. So let's see if this holds or not. And again, look at that 25% retrace, lines up exactly with $50 a share. So this thing's got to get back above 50 for me to think that this has any chance at retracing as far as the rest of after hours price action goes, right? AMD trying to bottom out at 164 and some change. And it's contending with the 25% retrace right now. I'd put that resistance level right around 167 a share. Is trading just below that right now. So let's see if it can breach 167. And then I'd like to see this golden ratio get knocked out, which would be right around 171. Low 171s would be solid for me. So just a couple levels to keep your eyes on for the bulls as far as potential resistance and levels that I'd like to see get reclaimed for this thing to, look like it's going to start reversing, right? AMD's earnings web call. Let's take a look and see when their webcast is. All right, give me 1 second. All right, AMD is also reporting, doing their earnings web call at 5 p.m. Eastern. And look at this link, real tiny short link here. So that'll be easy to type in and get there. Let me post that. Okay, we got AMD earnings already on the bottom of my screen. So I'm going to post the link for the earnings web call for AMD. Again, right when you get to that link, right on the home page, just scroll down a little bit. You can see right here, latest events. Boom, right here, 5 p.m. Eastern, August 5th today. As soon as you click on that, you'll be able to get into the web call. All right. Let's see here. Blue Brand says Rivian earnings. Okay, so they reported too, I think, right? So let me here, I'll pull them up on TradingView. Let's see, Rivian, I believe. Yep, Rivian. Okay, here's Rivian. All right. So they had some selling. They had an initial negative reaction, ended up going for 2 legs down. It did kind of come back up. That looks like it probably retraced about 50% there. And now it's kind of dealing with some levels over here. So Let's see if that bottom is in. That'd be around low $11. Let me just kind of draw this up here. I'll go from here to here. Actually, what I'm going to do, let me draw it this way. This might not be too exact, but okay, we get the sell off 25%. So yeah, it definitely retraced over 25%. So kind of eliminates the dead cat bounce. Sometimes it could still come down and maybe it's a bigger dead cat bounce, but I've just noticed these 25% traces. If it's going to be a dead cat bounce, it usually lines up pretty good with that. So it's breached it back up to the top side of that level. So that is a good thing. And I know the Rivian bulls out there, you're not liking the selling you're seeing, but it is showing signs of life that the bottom could be in. It closed the regular session a little over $12 a share. And it looks like there were some dip buyers at $11. I mean, that's the only way to explain these green candles. And there was definitely some buying. You could see this. This is the 1 minute chart too. You can see this bottom wick. So as soon as it wicked down to basically $11, there were some dip buyers that came into the picture and scooped that up. Now it's trading back basically mid to upper 11s. I mean, it's traded a little bit above 1150s right now, 1155. So it is down 5%, but it is showing signs of life. So this would be one that, hey, we could be onto something here. This would be a better candidate as far as it retracing back to baseline from where it closed at. That's kind of what you want to look for. So what we're looking for now, since we kind of eliminated the dead cat bounce a little bit, then now we want to see a higher low print. All right, now we just use one of these fib levels. So I'm thinking right here, the 38% retrace is right around 1150. I would like to see it print a higher low around 1150. We do have one more fail safe level before it comes back down to test after hours low, and that's going to be basically 1130. So support level 1, S1, is right around 1150. It's there right now. S number 2, 1130. Just keep it simple. All right, I know it says 11.33, but just trying the more simple you can keep your trading, the better it's going to go for you. All right. Just try and generalize things a little bit and kind of have an open mind about these levels aren't going to be to the penny. So just, 1130, somewhere around there. Could be a little bit above there, a little bit below there, but around the 1130 area, that's going to be my S2. S1 is 1150. It looks like it just bounced on 1150. So these will be some good solid support levels to keep in mind for the remainder of after hours and of course the pre-market data. Shoot, some of these tickers trade 24 hours now, and I think Robinhood does the 24-hour trading now in some of these, but I personally don't trade with Robinhood, and I do use Webull for charting, but where I actually transact my trades, that's going to be Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, the bigger brokers. I just prefer to do my business with them. But don't get it twisted. There's nothing wrong with trading with Webull and Robinhood. You're probably going to save on commission and that kind of stuff. So it's good. It's no problem. So anyways, yeah, some good levels on Rivian to keep in mind. I can check and see what their data actually was if anyone's interested on that. We are rolling up to the 5 o'clock mark, and that's when the actual earnings web call with the CEOs of AMD and SMCI. That's when that's going to go down. So we got about 10 more minutes for that. All right. So let me just check out Rivian just real quick. Okay, so here's the Rivian earnings. I'll just go over this verbally. I won't really post it on my screen, but they did miss EPS, but they did maintain the fiscal year delivery guidance of 40,000 to 46,000 vehicles. All right. They did beat revenue. I think it was Blue Brain asking about Rivian earnings. So, and revenue is important for they sell cars. They need revenue. That's an important line item for them. They beat it. They just reported 1.3 billion in revenue. The estimate was 1.28. It wasn't a huge beat, but nonetheless, they got a beat on that one, which is important. That probably has a little bit to do with why they kind of bottomed out at 11 and they're trying to claw their way back up. So, they did maintain their fiscal year delivery guidance. So that was probably important for investors to see that as well. I think if they would have reduced the guidance on the vehicle delivery numbers for the remainder of the year, this thing would probably still be making new lows in after hours. So, well, yeah, that's what I got on Rivian. Just real quick there. Let me just go over some of the trades I have open. Some of you might find this a little interesting, but here's one of my Fidelity accounts here. And I'll go ahead and just blow this up so everyone can see it a little better. There we go. Zoom in 150%. Just a quick peek at some of the positions I have. I am running the wheel strategy on Bull, which is Webull. We were just talking about Webull. Currently sold a $14 cash secured put. Got about 33% on the table. I'd like to get at least 75% or more on that trade. That expires August 15th, so only 10 more days, calendar days, before I know what's going to happen with that. If I end up getting 75% profit or more this week, I'll probably go ahead and just take that profit, put it in my pocket. You know, why wait another week for the other 25%? It makes sense to take the early profit on that if that happens. My price target on cash secured puts usually is 75% or more. Also running the wheel strategy on Ford. I definitely don't mind getting assigned on Ford because they also pay a dividend. So this is one that could turn into like a triple income deal here where I'm selling cash secured puts, collecting income. Maybe I can squeeze in a few rounds of cash secured puts before I even get assigned, build up a nice cushion with my cost basis with the premium I collect on each round. And, you know, I kind of do want to get assigned and because they pay a dividend. So what will happen after assignment is I'll then rotate the wheel to the covered call side and see how many rounds of covered calls I can get in. And I may turn it into what we call a short strangle, where not only will I have shares and I'll sell covered calls, but I can also deploy some cash secured puts at a lower strike price and bring in income. So I'll be bringing in income above the price of Ford. Below the price of Ford will be a second form of income. And then if I'm collecting the dividend, that kind of mutates it into a triple income trade. Those get really fun. And you can really get a sweet return on capital if you can get yourself into a triple income trade like that. So I'm up about 17% on that. That also expires August 15th. And then I did sell some $4.50 cash secured puts on JetBlue, just kind of trying to nibble on the travel sector dip there. And I'm a little red on those, not by much. I'm only down 9% on those. I would totally accept assignment on JetBlue at $4.50. And because I collected $28 a contract, if I get assigned at $4.50, my technical cost basis is only going to be $4.22. And then I'll just immediately start deploying $4.50 covered calls if I get assigned. If I don't, I'll just do another round of cash secured puts. I got an OSCR trade. I know this one's a little risky. They actually have earnings tomorrow. I do have 200 shares. What I did was, because they have earnings tomorrow, I wasn't trying to pick a direction. What I wanted to do was actually just protect my position to ensure no losses if they do have a negative reaction. Let me just pull up my spreadsheet because I keep a spreadsheet on the side because, you know, I do multiple trades on these wheels. You can see here, I did 4 rounds of cash secured puts on OSCR before I even got assigned one single share. And I brought in a few $100s in credit before I even got assigned one share. And then because of the earnings, I sold some covered calls. I got $71 each for my covered calls. And then I used the money I received on the covered call contracts to purchase my protective puts at the $14 strike. You can see here my technical cost basis on OSCR is only $12.87. So what this means is on this wheel, I've already brought in $226 and basically profit. So the reason why I slapped a collar on this is because I want to protect the profit I've already brought in on the trade. And putting the collar on the trade, that ensures that I basically locked in my gains. Because let's say OSCR, let's say they sell off to $10. That's a $4 hit per share, right? And I got 200 shares. You can see right there on my Fidelity account. you know, and if I didn't have this protective put in place, that I would realize that loss. And I'm not trying to do that. So that's why I used the premium I collected on the covered call to buy this protective put, which will cap my downside through intrinsic value alone at $14. So yeah, if this thing sells off to $10, yeah, my shares will take a $4 hit. But these put options, the naked protective put options I bought at the $14 strike, the profit I will make on those will cover the drawdown you see on your shares. So that'll cancel out. And then I could just basically cash in my protective put. The covered calls will be worthless, which means I'll get max gain on that. And then I could just basically liquidate my shares, and I would still walk away with around $200 profit. You know what I'm saying? There is a, and yeah, that's what Erdocitrin. I hope I pronounced that right. But yeah, it's a lot of math and behind this. But if you know what you're doing, it's really a good way to protect your positions and your portfolio. And that's the kind of trading I'm all about. It's a little more advanced. It's not your typical buy a call and want the underlying to go up, or buy a put, want the underlying to go down. I do like multi-legs, and I get real creative with things. And as long as the math makes sense, then it's good. I'm good to go, you know. And so it's important to know the different ways that we can be creative with managing positions. How do we protect gains that are on the table because there's an earnings catalyst or something like that, you know. And there's all kinds of creative and unique things we can do with our positions using options to help protect ourselves. But yeah, so that's pretty good. Let me move that back over to the side here. Let me go back to SMCI and see if they were able to put that bottom in. There we go. Yep, they're still working on the bottom. It very well could be right here around with a mid 47s. So they kind of, you know, they made two legs down, double bottom here. It could be the mid 47s. That could be where the demand is, because it's working on another little leg up, kind of retracing back up here. But keep your eye on it. You want to see higher lows start printing, and then you know, you could be onto something here that it is going to retrace. But unfortunately for the SMCI bulls, you're going to have to deal with this little bit of drawdown here. But again, moving forward, think about some of the things I said during this stream on how you can protect your downside going into these earnings releases, because it really is, you know, it's like 50-50 shot with these earnings. And of course, you know, we'll see companies do a great job beating EPS and beating sales revenue, but then they lower guidance and the stock tanks. So these things are really iffy, trying to play through the earnings. And, you know, not financial advice, but I just, you know, I like to help people protect themselves is what I like to do. So, but yeah, other than that, that's really all I got. The swinging bull with PB alerts. And if you're looking for a new home, come check us out. There's plenty of links in the description that'll get you over to us. And if you do end up joining, just tag me in the chats. I'll come by and say hello. We can chit chat a little bit. But wow, over 3,000 people tuned into this stream. I love each and every one of you. I really do enjoy streaming these earnings. And again, keep your eye on SMCI. This looks like it has it's looking like the bottom could be in mid 47s. That's probably the demand. It's already up a few dollars a share since that bottom came in, and it looked like it just printed a higher low right here. So this is the kind of stuff we want to see. We got the double bottom, and now the higher lows are printing. This could be going back the other way, so keep your eye on it. But yeah, you know, appreciate streaming. I always have a lot of fun doing this. Again, swinging bull with PB alerts. If you do end up joining the group, again, tag me in the chat. I'll come by and say hello. But I do these earnings streams every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And always looking forward to meeting new people and kind of brainstorming. And I just love that kind of stuff. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed the stream. I hope everyone has a great night. And I'll see everyone in the next video. Cheers.